It looks like the text you pasted suffered from a formatting error and lost almost all of its spaces. While your prompt translates literally to remove spaces, doing so would just create one massive, unreadable block of letters. Given the condition of the text, I assume you meant to clean up and restore the spaces. Here is the fully corrected and readable version of your story. I froze. The video looped again and again. The woman never blinked. She stood perfectly still, staring straight into the camera as her lips slowly formed the same words. Don't trust Hannah. Then, just as suddenly as she had appeared, she turned and walked away into the darkness. I replayed the recording at least 10 times, but there was nothing else. No car, no footsteps, nothing. I immediately called Lucas. Someone was at my house, I said. Another person? He asked. A woman. She looked directly into the camera. She warned me not to trust Hannah. There was a long pause. Don't delete anything, he said. I'm coming over. 20 minutes later, Lucas was watching the recording frame by frame. He paused on a close-up of the woman's face. Do you know her? I shook my head. Never seen her before. He then zoomed in on the left side of the screen. There, for the split fraction of a second, another figure could be seen standing behind a tree. Wait, I whispered. Who's that? Lucas enhanced the image. It was too blurry to see a face, but the outline was clear. A tall man wearing a long coat. His left hand was visible. Even through the grainy footage, we could make out the familiar black compass tattoo. Lucas looked at me. Your house was being watched by 2 different people. My heart began to race. Or 2 groups, he muttered. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with an incoming text from Daniel. Where are you? I typed back. At Sophie's, helping her with something. His reply came almost immediately. Don't stay out too long. Dad and I have important news to share. I looked at Lucas. They're moving faster. He nodded. So, do we need to? Just then, another notification appeared from my bank. Someone had attempted to log into my online account from a device I had never used. The attempt had failed because of 2-factor authentication. I quickly changed my password. Then a second notification arrived. Password successfully changed from another device. My blood ran ice cold. That's impossible, I whispered. I just changed it. Lucas grabbed the phone from my hand. Claire, this didn't come from your bank. I looked closer. The message was fake. A sophisticated phishing attempt. They wanted your new password. Before I could catch my breath, the front doorbell rang. All 3 of us froze. Lucas slowly walked to the window and pulled the curtain back just enough to look outside. His face suddenly lost all color. Claire, he said quietly, don't look. Of course, I looked anyway. Richard was standing at the front door, smiling. In one hand he held a small gift bag. In the other he held a tiny baby pink blanket, as if he were simply a grandfather excited to meet his granddaughter. But what terrified me wasn't Richard. It was the black SUV parked across the street, with the engine already running. Richard didn't ring the doorbell again. He stood perfectly still, holding the small gift bag as his smile grew wider. Lucas slowly turned away from the window. Don't open the door, he whispered. I nodded, but my heart wouldn't stop pounding. Then my phone vibrated. It was Daniel. Claire, Dad said you're not answering the door. Everything okay? I didn't reply. A few seconds later, another message appeared. He's only trying to bring you a present. Lucas gestured for me to stay quiet. Richard waited another minute before placing the gift bag carefully on the front porch. He then looked straight at the front door camera and raised his hand in a slow wave. Before walking back to his car, he pointed at the camera and smiled again. He knows he's being recorded, Lucas said. He's sending you a message. After Richard drove away, the black SUV remained parked across the street. The engine continued running. Nobody got out. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Finally, the SUV pulled away without turning on its headlights. "Don't touch the bag yet," Lucas said. He carefully opened his car and returned wearing a pair of rubber gloves. He carried the gift bag inside the living room and placed it on the newspaper. Without touching anything directly, he opened the top. Inside was a soft pink baby blanket, a small stuffed rabbit, and a white envelope. My name was written across the front in Richard's neat block letters. Lucas slid the letter out and read it silently. His expression changed immediately. "What does it say?" I asked. He passed it to me. The letters were short. "Family should always stay together. Nothing is stronger than blood. We will see you very soon. Richard." No threats, no demands, just those words. Somehow they made me feel more afraid than any direct warning could have. I carefully folded the letter back into the envelope. Just then, Sophie's phone began ringing. She stepped into the kitchen to take it, but a few seconds later she returned looking pale. "That was my neighbor," she said. "Someone has been parked outside our building for hours." Lucas looked at her. "Description?" She closed her eyes for a moment. "Black SUV." Silence filled the room. They weren't just watching me. They were watching anyone helping me. Lucas took a deep breath. "Claire, it's time to leave your house." I looked around the living room. The photos, the books, the baby nursery that I had spent months decorating. "If I leave, they'll know I'm running." "They already know," he said. "The only question is whether we leave before they make their next move." I looked down at my hands. They were shaking again. Not from fear alone, from anger. Everything I had built was taken from me without a single word of truth. Then my phone buzzed once again. This time it was an email. There was no subject line, just one attachment. It was an old photograph. I opened it slowly. My breath caught in the back of my throat. The pregnant woman from the picture I'd found in the hidden box was standing outside a small country house, smiling, holding the hand of a little boy who appeared to be 4 or 5 years old. On the reverse of the photo, someone had written in black ink, "Noah's mother didn't listen to the warnings." I couldn't take my eyes off the photograph. The little boy looked happy, completely unaware of whatever had happened to his family. I turned the picture over again and read the words for a 10th time. Noah's mother didn't listen to the warnings. There was no signature, no address, nothing that could identify who sent it. Lucas carefully placed the photo inside a plastic sleeve. "Don't touch it again," he said. "There could be fingerprints." I looked at him. "Do you think they meant to scare me?" "No," he replied quietly. "I think they meant to send a message." Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. It was another unknown number. I hesitated before answering. "Hello?" Only breathing. Then a voice I'd never heard before. "Stop looking for Noah." The line disconnected. I stared at the screen. Lucas quickly wrote down the time of the call. "They know what you're investigating," he muttered. "But how?" I asked. "Only you and Sophie know about the journal." Sophie's face turned pale. "Unless—" She stopped talking. "Unless what?" Lucas asked. "Unless someone has been inside Claire's house." We stared at each other. Then we all looked toward the hallway. The house felt completely different now. Every shadow seemed deeper. Every creak sounded intentional. Lucas immediately checked the front and back doors. Both were locked. Then he opened the window in the study. It was closed, but the lock had fresh scratch marks. "Someone was here recently," he said. "Very recently." A chill ran through my entire body. I hadn't imagined it. Someone had been watching me while I searched for answers. Lucas took out a phone and called someone. "I need a favor," he said. "Run a facial comparison." He emailed the photo of the pregnant woman. After nearly 20 minutes, his phone rang again. He turned on the speaker. "We've got a match," the man said. "Name, Emily Carter. Reported missing 12 years ago." I covered my mouth. "Missing?" The voice continued. "Police believed she left the country voluntarily. Case never closed." Lucas ended the call and slowly looked at me. "Claire, Emily never came home." The weight of those words hit me like a truck. If Emily was Daniel's former partner, and if she had vanished, what did that mean for me? Before any of us could speak, all the lights suddenly went out. The house was plunged into complete darkness. For 3 endless seconds, no one moved. Then, from outside the front window, we heard the low rumble of an engine. Someone had stopped directly in front of the house. Headlights flashed once, twice, then went dark again. Lucas slowly pulled the curtain back just an inch. His voice became barely a whisper. "Claire." I could hear the strain in his voice. "It's Daniel." Then he paused. "And he isn't alone." Daniel's car remained idling at the curb. Neither he nor the passenger opened their doors. The only light came through the thin beams of the headlights reflecting off the living room window. Lucas motioned for all of us to stay low. We crouched behind the sofa in complete silence. After almost 2 minutes, the engine finally shut off. The driver's door opened first. Daniel stepped out. His expression was impossible to read from that distance. Then another door opened. Richard climbed out slowly, straightening his coat. But instead of walking toward the house, the 2 men stood beside the car as if they were waiting for someone. "What are they doing?" Sophie whispered. Lucas shook his head. "Watching." Another vehicle turned the corner. It was the black SUV. It had been following us since earlier. The SUV stopped behind Daniel's car. 2 men stepped out. Both of them wore dark jackets. One of them had the familiar compass tattoo on his left wrist. Even through the streetlights, I recognized it instantly. The 4 men formed a small circle and began speaking. None of them looked toward the house. "They're planning something," I whispered. Just then, my phone vibrated in the pocket of my hoodie. The loud buzz seemed deafening. I quickly silenced it. The screen lit up with a single text message from an unknown number. "Do not let them see you." I looked around the room. "Did any of you send this?" Both Lucas and Sophie shook their heads. Before I could think about it, the 4 men outside began walking toward the house. Not running, not shouting, just calmly walking. The kind of confidence only people with a plan seemed to have. Lucas immediately turned off every remaining light source in the house. "Back door," he whispered. "Now." We moved as silently as possible through the kitchen. He was slowly unlocking the rear door when we heard 3 firm knocks on the front door. Nothing else. No one called my name. No one asked to come inside. Just 3 calm knocks. Then tense seconds of silence. Then another 3 knocks. Richard's voice finally broke the quiet. "Claire, we know you're home." I held my breath. "We need to talk." No one moved. "Claire," Daniel called next. He sounded as gentle as ever. "Please open the door. I'm worried about you." Lucas finished unlocking the back door and motioned us to move. As the open door swung outward, cool night air filled the kitchen. We had taken only 2 steps outside when a sudden bright flash lit up the rear yard. Someone had turned on a powerful flashlight. "Stop right there!" a man's voice shouted. It wasn't Daniel. It wasn't Richard. It was a stranger. Instantly, another flashlight appeared from the left, then a third from the right. We had walked straight into an ambush. The flashlights blinded me for a second. I instinctively raised my arm to protect my eyes. My heart felt as though it would burst out of my chest. "Don't move," the stranger shouted again. Lucas immediately stepped in front of me and Sophie. "Identify yourself," he called back. Instead of an answer, the flashlights were switched off. All at once. The backyard fell into complete blackness again. "Run," Lucas whispered. We didn't hesitate. We jumped the low wooden fence and raced across the wet grass behind the property. I could barely keep up. my pregnancy forcing me to move slower than I wanted. Sophie stayed beside me, holding my arm while Lucas led the way toward a small line of trees behind the neighborhood. Behind us, I heard voices. "They're heading for the woods," someone yelled. Another voice answered, "Split up." My breathing became louder with every step. My feet slipped in the mud, but Sophie caught me before I fell. "Keep going," she said. "You're doing great." After several minutes, we reached an old service road where Lucas's SUV was hidden behind a thick row of pine trees. "Get in," he ordered. The moment all the doors closed, he started the engine without turning on the headlights. We rolled silently down the road until we were half a mile away before he switched them on. "They'll look for your car first," he said, "not mine." Nobody spoke for several minutes. Then my phone vibrated again. Another unknown number. This time it was a voicemail. I pressed play. A man's calm voice spoke clearly. "Claire, you've been lied to, but not by the people you think." There was a brief pause. "If you want the truth about Emily and Noah, come to the Old Harbor Lighthouse at 8 p.m. tomorrow. Come alone." The message ended. I looked at Lucas. "It's a trap," he said immediately. "Probably," I answered. "But whoever left that message knows things no one else does." Sophie shook her head. "Claire, you can't possibly be considering this." I didn't answer because I was already thinking about the photograph, the journal, and Hannah's warning. None of the pieces together made a single picture. Someone was lying, but I still didn't know who. As we continued driving, my eyes drifted to the side view mirror. For the first few miles, the road behind us was empty. Then, without warning, 2 single headlights appeared in the distance. Motorcycle. Lucas noticed it at the same time. "We've got company," he murmured. The motorcycle never came closer, never fell behind. It kept the exact same distance, following us every turn, every mile, as someone wanted to make sure we knew we were not alone. The motorcycle continued following us at the same distance for almost 40 minutes. It never tried to overtake us, never turned off. Its headlight remained fixed in our side mirror like a single unblinking eye. "They're not trying to hide," Lucas muttered. "They want us to know they're there." Eventually, he turned off the main highway onto a narrow country road. The motorcycle passed the intersection without slowing down and disappeared into the night. None of us spoke for another minute. "Maybe it wasn't following us," Sophie said hopefully. Lucas shook his head. "It was." We stopped at a small cabin owned by one of Lucas's old friends. It was deep in the forest, more than an hour from town. There was no cell service and only one gravel road leading in. "We'll stay here tonight," he said. "Nobody knows this place." I wanted to believe him, but my instincts kept telling me that our moves had been predictable. After locking all the doors and checking the windows, Lucas placed a small portable camera outside each entrance. "Just in case," he said. Sophie prepared tea, though none of us drank much. I couldn't stop thinking about the voicemail. The Old Harbor Lighthouse. Come alone. It was obviously dangerous, but it might also be the only chance to learn what had really happened to Emily and Noah. Just after midnight, I couldn't sleep. I quietly walked into the living room and looked out the window. The forest was completely dark. Then I saw it, a tiny red light, blinking among the trees. Once, twice, 3 times. At first I thought it was a tower or a distant vehicle, but it didn't move. It stayed in the same place, watching the cabin. I immediately called Lucas. He came to the window and stared for a long moment. "That's not a tower," he said. "It's a camera." My blood ran cold. Someone has placed a remote monitoring device in the trees. Without another word, he grabbed a flashlight and his jacket. "You're not going out there alone," I said. "I'm not," he replied. He pulled a small radio transceiver from his bag. "If I'm not back in 10 minutes, lock everything and don't open the door for anyone." He disappeared into the dark forest. The minutes passed painfully slowly. 5, 6, 7. At the 9-minute mark, the radio crackled. "I found it," Lucas whispered. "It's not just a camera." Static filled the speaker. "It's—" The transmission cut off. Sophie and I looked at each other in panic. "Lucas!" I called through the radio. No reply. Then from outside the cabin came a single gunshot. Everything went completely silent. The gunshot echoed through the forest and left everything terrifyingly silent. Sophie grabbed my arm so hard it actually hurt. "Don't go outside," she said. I could only stare at the door, waiting for Lucas's voice over the radio. Seconds felt like minutes. Finally, the static suddenly returned. "I'm okay," Lucas's strained voice said. "Lock the door. Don't let anyone in until you hear my voice in person." The radio went dead again. I checked the clock. 3 minutes passed, then 5, then nearly 10. Every creak in the cabin sounded like footsteps. Finally, there were 3 quick knocks on the front door. Freeze. Lucas had never mentioned a knocking signal. "Lucas," I called. No reply. Then another 3 knocks. This slower. "Claire," a man's voice said through the rear door. "It's me." It was Lucas's voice, or at least it was an almost perfect imitation. Sophie looked at me, fear written across her face. "Don't open that door," she whispered. Then we heard another voice from outside. This time it came from the side window. "Claire, don't listen to him." That was Lucas, too. 2 identical voices, calling from 2 different places. My heart pounded so hard I could barely think. "They're trying to make you open the door," Sophie said. "But which one is real?" Neither of us dared move. Then my phone buzzed. An unknown number again. I answered without thinking. "Don't say a word," the woman whispered. It was Hannah. "They're testing you." I held my breath. "How do you know?" I asked. "Because it worked on Emily." My blood ran ice cold. What happened to her? Hannah's voice broke for just a second. "She opened the door." The line went dead. Immediately afterward, all the voices outside ceased. No knocking, no footsteps, nothing. At last, after what felt like an eternity, the radio crackled again. "Claire." This voice was short of breath. "It's really me." I looked at Sophie. "How do we verify?" Lucas answered before I could ask. "Your favorite ice cream is blackberry cheesecake. You hated me for 2 days because I accidentally dropped your birthday cake in the parking lot last year." Sophie nodded. Only Lucas would know that. He carefully opened the door. Lucas stumbled inside. His left arm was bleeding through his shirt. "You're hurt," I gasped. "It's just a grazing wound," he said, slamming the door behind him. "We have to leave now." He dropped a small black device on the table. It looked like a box with a wire antenna. "What is that?" I asked. "A transmitter." He paused to take a breath. "Someone planted it outside." Sophie frowned. "To track us?" Lucas looked straight at me. "No." His voice was grim. "To track you." The words felt like a punch to the chest. "Track me?" I asked. Lucas nodded. "Whoever placed that device wasn't interested in me or Sophie. They wanted to know where you were at all times." He carefully wrapped a bandage around his arm while I continued staring at the black transmitter. "How could they know we would come to this cabin?" I asked. "They couldn't," Lucas answered, "which means the tracker was already on you." Every muscle in my body tensed. "That's impossible." Lucas looked at my handbag. "When was the last time you left it unattended?" I thought back to the previous week. Richard's house, the law office, the hospital, the supermarket. There had been dozens of opportunities. Sophie began emptying the bag onto the kitchen table. Wallet, keys, medical papers, lip balm, phone charger. Then Lucas picked up the small stuffed rabbit Richard had left in the gift bag. His expression changed. "Don't touch it," he said quietly. He carefully pressed one of the ears. A faint green light flashed inside the toy. My heart stopped. "No," Lucas nodded. There's your tracker. Sophie cursed under her breath. The gift was never for the baby. Lucas placed the rabbit inside a metal toolbox and closed the lid. That should block the signal for the time being. I felt sick. Every place the toy had been, every conversation we had, they could have known exactly where I was. Claire, Lucas said softly, there's something else. He pulled a small memory card from the transmitter he had found outside the cabin. I think it was recording. He inserted the card into his laptop. Several folders appeared. One was labeled GPS, another audio, the third photos. He clicked photos first. My breath caught. There were dozens of images of me, leaving the hospital, shopping for baby clothes, walking in the park, standing outside Sophie's building. None of the photos had been taken closer than a few hundred feet. Someone had been watching me for months. Lucas opened the audio folder. Next, a clip started playing. Richard's voice filled the room. She's becoming suspicious. Then Daniel answered. We'll move the timeline forward. The clip ended after only 6 seconds. None of us spoke for a long time. Finally, Sophie broke the silence. Timeline? Lucas didn't answer. He clicked the last folder. There was only one document inside, a PDF named Phase 3. His face grew pale when he opened it. Claire, he whispered. You need to see this. I walked to the computer. The screen showed a checklist. The first 2 steps were already marked complete. Phase 1, financial preparation, completed. Phase 2, medical coordination, completed. My eyes moved to the 3rd line. Phase 3, family transition, scheduled, Monday, 9 a.m. Today was Saturday, 2 days away. I couldn't look away from the screen. Monday, 9 a.m., less than 48 hours away. What's supposed to happen on Monday? I asked. My voice barely sounded like my own. Lucas scrolled farther down the document, but the rest was encrypted. There was only one sentence visible beneath the heading. All participants must be confirmed before execution. Sophie whispered, Execution? Lucas immediately shook his head. It could mean execution of a plan. Not necessarily. He stopped talking. None of us believed that explanation. I looked at the clock. It was 2:14 a.m. We had less than 2 days to find out what they were planning. Before anyone could say another word, the laptop made a soft notification tone. A new file had appeared in the folder. Nobody had touched the keyboard. Lucas slowly clicked it open. It was a live video feed. My heart nearly stopped. It was my house. Someone had a camera inside the kitchen. The view was sharp and every light was off. After a few seconds, the front door opened. Daniel walked inside. Richard followed him. The 2 men stood in the middle of the kitchen without speaking. Then Daniel looked directly at the camera, almost as if he knew we were watching. He smiled. She's gone, he said. Richard answered, She won't stay hidden forever. Daniel placed a small folder on the kitchen table. Monday doesn't change. Richard nodded. No, it never does. The feed ended abruptly. Sophie took a step back. How are we watching this? Lucas looked terrified. We're not connecting to them. He pointed at the screen. They're connecting to us. Suddenly, the laptop display went black. White letters slowly appeared in the center. Hello, Claire? My hands began to shake. Then another line appeared. If you can read this, you are still on time. None of us moved. A third line began to type itself, one letter at a time. Stop looking for Emily. Then silence. The computer restarted on its own. When it finished booting, the folders were missing. Every photo, every recording, every document Lucas had copied from the transmitter had vanished. No, he muttered. He frantically searched the hard drive. Nothing. It was as if the files had never existed. Then Sophie gasped. "Lucas!" He turned toward her. She was staring out the front window. There, in the distance between the trees, we could see 3 small red lights, blinking in synchronization. Once, twice, 3 times. "They're surrounding the cabin," Lucas said quietly. Before any of us could react, the power went out again. The cabin was plunged into darkness. And from just outside the front door came a very calm knock. 3 gentle taps, exactly the same as before. The 3 knocks echoed through the cabin. None of us moved. I could hear my own heartbeat in the deafening silence. Then a voice spoke from the other side of the door. "Claire!" It was Daniel. "I know you're inside." His voice was calm, almost gentle. "You don't have to be scared." Lucas slowly raised a finger to his lips, warning us to stay quiet. Daniel continued. "You've been listening to the wrong people." No answer. "Hannah lied to you." My stomach tightened. How did he know about Hannah? "Lucas can't protect you." Another pause. "Open this door, and I'll explain everything." Sophie squeezed my hand. "Don't believe him," she whispered. The cabin fell silent again. Then Richard's voice joined Daniel's. "Claire, we've been looking for you all night." His words were slow and careful. "You're putting the baby in danger." I closed my eyes. They knew exactly which fears to use. A few seconds later, car headlights flashed through the trees. The beams illuminated the front yard for a brief moment. I peeked through the curtain. A police SUV had pulled up. My heart leaped. "The police," I whispered. Lucas didn't move. "Wait." 2 uniformed officers stepped out of the vehicle. Daniel immediately walked toward them. They spoke for almost a minute. One of the officers nodded. Then, before my eyes, he pointed directly at the cabin. The officers began walking toward our door. "That's not good," Lucas said quietly. "Why would they—" He stopped speaking. A firm knock came from the door. "Police department," a man announced. "Mrs. Morgan, we've received a report that you're being held against your will." I looked at Lucas in horror. "What?" Sophie's face turned white. "They reported you missing." The officer continued. "Mrs. Morgan, please open the door." Lucas leaned close to me. "If those officers are legitimate, you can tell them the truth." "And if they aren't?" His expression answered the question before he spoke. Then we walked straight into Daniel's hands. The officer knocked again. "Mrs. Morgan, we will count to 10. My hands were shaking violently. 1. Lucas quietly opened his backpack and removed a small sealed envelope. "If anything happens to me," he said, "take this to Detective Sarah Collins." I looked at the envelope. "Who's she?" Lucas met my eyes. "The only police officer I still trust." Outside, the count continued. 7, 8. Then, before the officer could say 9, a gunshot rang out from deep in the forest. Not one. Several. The officers instantly turned away from the cabin, reaching for their weapons. Someone was firing from the tree line, and whoever they weren't shooting at us. They were shooting at Daniel and Richard. Gunfire erupted from the tree line, shattering the night. The officers instantly dived behind their vehicle while Daniel grabbed Richard and pulled him toward the engine block. Shouts filled the air. "Get down!" someone yelled. Lucas didn't hesitate. "Now," he ordered. We ran through the back door while everyone's attention was focused on the gunfire. The forest was dark, but Lucas clearly knew the terrain. "Stay close," he whispered. Branches struck my face as we pushed deeper between the trees. Behind us, the gunfire lasted only a few more seconds. Then it suddenly stopped. The silence that followed was almost more terrifying. After nearly 15 minutes of walking, we came upon an abandoned fire watch tower. Hidden beneath it was a small steel hatch. Lucas pulled it open with both hands and revealed a narrow staircase leading underground. "What is this?" I asked. An old emergency shelter, he replied. Hardly anyone remembers it exists. We carefully climbed down. The air inside was cool and damp, but the shelter had working lights connected to a battery bank. Lucas locked the hatch above us and finally allowed himself to breathe. We should be safe for a night. Sophie sank into a chair, still shaking. Who was out there? She asked. Who was shooting? Lucas slowly shook his head. I don't know. Before anyone could say another word, my phone vibrated again. There was no signal, but an offline video file had somehow appeared in the gallery. I didn't recognize it. Don't open it, Sophie said. It could be malware. Lucas examined the phone. It's stored locally. Someone placed it on here earlier. My hands began to tremble as I tapped play. The screen showed security footage from inside a hospital corridor. The timestamp read, 8 years earlier. A young woman appeared on the video. I recognized her immediately from the old photograph. It was Emily. She was heavily pregnant, walking beside Daniel. He seemed happy, holding her hand. Then another figure entered the frame. Richard. He spoke to a doctor, who nodded and handed him a small folder. The video had no audio, but the body language was clear. Richard was giving instructions. The scene jumped forward 20 minutes. Emily was being wheeled toward an operating room. She looked confused. She kept looking back toward Daniel. He didn't follow her. He stayed in the hallway with Richard. The final frame froze on the closed operating room doors. Beneath the image, a white sentence appeared. Emily never came out. My breath caught in my throat. Then another line faded in. Ask yourself why Daniel never reported her missing. The room fell completely silent. Everyone was staring at the screen. Finally, Lucas looked at me. Claire, if this video is real, everything we've believed about Emily's disappearance may be only part of the truth. Just then, we heard a faint metallic sound from above the shelter. Someone was slowly trying to open the steel hatch. The metallic scraping continued above the hatch. Every few seconds it paused, then started again. Someone was working carefully, trying not to make too much noise. Lucas immediately switched off the lights. The shelter was plunged into complete blackness. I could barely make out Sophie's outline beside me. Then we heard a voice, muffled by the thick steel. Claire. It was Daniel. I know you're down there. No one made a sound. His voice continued, calm and steady. You've seen only half of the story. My heart began to race. Emily wasn't our victim. I looked at Lucas. He frowned but didn't speak. She betrayed all of us, Daniel said. She tried to take my son. My breath caught. Noah is alive? I whispered. Lucas looked at me in shock, but before he could answer, Daniel spoke again. Ask yourself why no one has ever seen Noah since. Then silence. Footsteps moved away from the hatch. For a few minutes, none of us dared move. Finally, Lucas turned the lights back on. He's playing with you, he said. He may be, I answered, but he said Noah was his son. Lucas nodded slowly. That doesn't mean the rest is true. Sophie suddenly pointed at the laptop. Look. The screen had turned on by itself. There was no mouse movement, no keyboard input, just a black background and a white cursor. Then letters began to appear. If you really want the answer, find locker 317. The message vanished before anyone could touch the keyboard. Locker 317? Sophie repeated. Where? Lucas rubbed his chin. Bus station, train station, school, gym. There could be hundreds of lockers. Then my memory clicked. The old Central Railway station. Both of them looked at me. Daniel once told me that his family used to rent a storage locker there years ago. Lucas immediately opened a map. The station closed 5 years ago. He pointed to an industrial district on the edge of the city. Most of the building is abandoned now." Before we could discuss it further, the battery-powered radio beside the wall crackled to life by itself. No one had turned it on. A woman's voice filled the room. "This is Detective Sarah Collins. If anyone can hear this, do not return to your home." Lucas froze. "Sarah," the voice repeated. "Claire Morgan, if you're alive, listen carefully. Someone inside our department is feeding information to Richard Morgan. You cannot trust uniforms until you find me personally." The signal faded in and out through heavy static. Then one final sentence came through clearly. "And whatever you do, don't go to locker 317 alone." The radio went completely silent. None of us spoke for what felt like an entire minute. Because for the first time since all this began, we finally had a specific place to go, and two different people were telling us opposite things about it. The air in the shelter felt heavier than ever before. Locker 317 was now the center of everything. One person wanted me to find it. Another warned me to stay away. Lucas folded the map and looked at me. "Whatever is in that locker," he said, "people are willing to kill for it." I nodded. "Which means we need to find it before they do." Sophie shook her head. "Or it could be exactly where they want you to go." None of us spoke for a second. Both possibilities made perfect sense. Finally, Lucas said, "We don't go alone, and we don't go during the day." Several hours later, just before dawn, we left the shelter through a second hidden exit that opened half a mile away in the forest. We drove south using back roads, avoiding main highways and traffic cameras. By the time we reached the old Central Railway station, the sun was just beginning to rise. The building looked abandoned. Broken windows, crumbling brick walls, weeds growing through cracked concrete. The parking lot was completely empty. "Stay alert," Lucas said. He gave me a small earpiece. "If anything goes wrong, don't be a hero. Run." We carefully entered through a side entrance. The air inside smelled of dust and rust. Old advertisements still hung on the walls, faded almost beyond recognition. We passed empty ticket counters until we reached the locker hall. Hundreds of metal doors stood in silent rows. 317, Sophie murmured, counting the numbers. Finally, we stopped in front of a small gray locker. Its door looked older than the rest, and the surface was scratched by years of use. "It's locked," I said. Lucas knelt beside it and examined the keyhole. Not for long. He pulled out a small lockpick set. After less than a minute, there was a soft click. The door opened slowly. Inside was a single shoebox and a taped manila envelope. My hand shook as I lifted the envelope. The front read only 2 words. "For Claire." I looked at Lucas. Someone expected me to find this. I opened the envelope. Inside were a photograph, a small USB drive, and a birth certificate. My breath caught in the back of my throat. The name on the certificate was Noah Alexander Morgan. Father, Daniel Morgan. Mother, Emily Carter. Birth status, alive. Sophie gasped. "He's alive!" Before I could pick up the USB drive, a footstep echoed from the far end of the hall. Then another. Then another. Someone was walking toward us. Slowly. Deliberately. Lucas raised his flashlight. The beam revealed a tall figure wearing a long, dark coat. The person stopped about 30 feet away. "Don't touch that USB," the figure called out. It was a woman's voice. Steady. Familiar. She pulled back her hood, and for the first time in my life I was looking directly into Emily Carter's eyes.